assistant.
Yes. Well, thanks for the prayer, and Amber, welcome. Glad to have you all join. I have a scripture I just read the other day. It's actually one I've thought about a little bit the last few weeks for some reason. This is Alma chapter 29 and verse 4. So, this is the verse where it says, "Oh, I wish I were an angel and could have the wish of my heart and declare repentance to the whole world." But he says, "I'm a man, I do sin and I wish." And he says, "I ought not to herald up in my desires a firm decree of a just God, for I know that he granteth unto men according to their desire, whether it be unto death or unto life. Yea, I know that he allotteth unto men, yea, he decreeth unto them decrees which are unalterable, according to their wills, whether they be unto salvation or unto destruction. The part that jumps up to me there is that God grants unto men according to our desires. When we talk about prayer and we talk about seeking the will of the Lord, but so much of life happens according to what we desire, and that drives our faith and what we do. So there's definitely a process. There's definitely a process of listening and acting and going to the Lord with what we desire, and then aligning that with His, I think, is the challenge. So, wanted to share that with you. I think there's so much in the gospel that is so agency based, based upon what we choose. But that was a good reminder of that. Okay. Really great. Okay. So housekeeping wise, so we've got doohickeys. We had the due date on that. Some of the due dates got askew a little bit, so thanks for those of you that pointed those out. I think we got those fixed. So doohickeys is due at the end of week 5, so I think you probably have a little more time than it shows. Does it show the 9th on there?
It doesn't really give us dates. It just says the end of the week that I read. Did anyone else see dates?
Yeah, I'm looking at week 5. And
I've never seen a place to actually turn it in. Like, I just keep seeing the reminders that it's going to be due, but I've never seen anywhere for us to actually submit the assignment or a date.
Okay, and that's partially, so what I still need to do is put the groups. I've organized your groups, but I need to enter them into iLearn. And so once I do that, it will allow you to submit. So that's gonna change. I'll be able to get that done in the next little while here this week.
Okay, great. Thanks.
But we submit it at the end of next week, correct?
Yeah, so it is actually due on Monday, October 16th at 8 a.m. Okay, so I think I had a different date listed, but yeah, it's Monday, October 16th at 8 a.m., which is kind of weird. We have those Monday morning deadlines. But, so some groups will use Monday morning, or they'll do things by Saturday night. It varies. So
I have a question on the doohickeys. As far as they go, I'm not quite understanding the instructions with what we're supposed to do with the write-ups. So is each question supposed to have 12 different points that we write up for one paragraph, or are we supposed to have 12 different paragraphs?
Yeah, good question. So it breaks out. You want to identify, excuse me. Let's see, backwards, 4 problems and 3 recommendations for each.
Oh, I thought it was 3 issues.
Okay, you're right. Thank you. I knew I was saying that wrong.
Okay, we've been going back and forth with this, our group, so we did.
Yeah, no, it's, and as we get the ball rolling, you'll see it. But it's 3 issues, and you want to identify issues that we've discussed already. So, sometimes I'll get a first paper and it says, it has issues related to compensation and benefits, which is definitely an issue. But we'll do that later in the semester. I think, down the road in the semester, we'll actually talk about benefits and have a lesson about that. So use the topics that we've talked about since week 1 to surround issues with, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So, week 1, there was some discussion on leadership. We've talked about teamwork. This week, we're talking about equal employment, diversity, inclusion. So that kind of prescribes the issues that you'll kind of look for and address. And then the next paper will address what we discuss in weeks 8 through 11. So.
Okay. And then we have 4 paragraphs per issue that we come up with, correct?
Yeah, 4 recommendations. And, it can be a paragraph. It can be a couple paragraphs. What I also have that I will send to you all is an example paper. I don't have a page requirement, but generally look for 3,500 words. Kind of a word requirement.
So there's no page requirement, but approximately 3,500 words.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So that should give you.
And then the last paragraph, kind of summarizes the whole thing. Is that right? As far as what was lacked, I want to make sure I understand. Oh, yeah. It's the most important thing to focus on out of the 3 that we determine. We choose one of those as the most important.
Yeah, kind of a conclusion, kind of identify the key issue.
Okay.
Wrap it up. So, really, so what we're doing throughout the semester is being a consultant for this doohickeys company that, as you can see, is quite a mess. But it really provides, it's a basic little case with lots of problems, but it provides a good platform to really talk about how you would approach, some of those issues using the things that we'll learn about. So.
Okay, that helps. Does that make more sense to you, Heather?
I'm still a little bit confused, but when you say identify 3 issues using the topics, but you gave us 3 topics that we've, have covered. So once we identify those 3 issues, are we supposed to use 4 topics? What is the 4 for?
So 4 recommendations.
4 recommendations of how we could fix it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. Sorry, I must have missed that.
No. Great questions, and this will benefit everybody. We'll post this out to everybody. So, this is the initial one, and there are these questions out there. And what you're recommending, it's kind of like you're a consultant, and you're presenting your case to the CEO.
Okay.
You want to really kind of sell the idea, support it with, hey, this is why this is going to work. This is how it's going to benefit the company, and things like that. So.
Okay, that's helpful.
And in the paragraphs, do you want each issue a paragraph, or do you want each recommendation a paragraph?
Really, probably just the recommendations, kind of section it out.
So 12 paragraphs plus the conclusion?
Yeah, that works great. Okay. Kind of that business letter format or business executive summary format. You can use headings. I'll get that example out to you so you can kind of see that.
That would be helpful.
It gives you a frame of reference.
Okay, that's great.
Oh yeah, that's definitely normal to have these questions, especially as we're just
first one.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing though, is stay within the topics, and that will help you because you'll notice all kinds of issues, but for example, we're not going to talk about safety until I think week 8.
Mm-hmm.
We'll talk about benefits till week 6 or 7, a couple more weeks. So,
okay. I've got one more question, and it might not be applicable for this time, but do we keep our groups all semester long because we're working together and learning how each other work, or are we switched up every time?
Same groups.
Okay, that's great to know.
Yeah. Oh.
Perfect.
So we'll do 4 doohickeys assignments. There is an option. So in the past, we've generally done 4 papers. The last one, there is an option as a group, and this is just something to think about, and you can kind of talk to me about later. You can instead of doing a paper, you can do a presentation or kind of a dialogue on that last paper. So that's something that I'm going to put together as an option. So that way, by the fourth one, we say, hey, let's maybe put together some slides and present on this, or something like that, rather than write another paper. So just a thought.
I have a question on the side. Do you happen to have any kind of video with that doohickey case of the rowers?
There is one video out there that's similar. I can find it. I don't have the link bookmarked, but I know there's one out there.
Is that something that my husband's dealing with this problem? He goes, does he have a video on that?
Yeah, it's a cool case. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, he just wanted to use it for work if you had something. I just needed to ask you before I forgot. Sorry.
Let me write that down.
Okay, thank you.
Just a moment. I'm getting a text from group members that say they're on the meeting, but I can't see this. Let's see if I can find that link. Let me text them back, because that came to your email, right? The BYU at home email?
Yes.
Just a moment, sorry. All right, any other questions?
No, that was my most immediate one.
Okay. How's it going for this week as far as, any questions about the group leader assignments? I know there's been questions about that too.
I might have one next week, but I don't this week.
Okay, so each person just has to be the discussion leader twice in the semester. As soon as you've all done it twice, then you're good. Only one person has to post. And so others have asked about that check mark. It shows you have a missed assignment. I excuse the assignment for those that don't post. If you're really wanting to take care of that check mark, you can post a document and say, hey, I wasn't the discussion leader. That's fine. I understand the desire to get that check mark, but otherwise just leave it be, and I'll excuse the grade for you on that one.
Okay, that's good.
So like my group, we only have 3 of us, so we only have to do it twice. So come week, I think 8, we would all have done it twice already. So we still have to do, I mean, obviously we should still do the meetings, but we don't have to do the actual assignment.
Correct. Yep.
Leadership assignment. Oh, that's awesome. I was like, it's not fair. Some groups have so many members.
Yeah, just twice each, and then you're covered. So.
Thank you.
You bet. Good question. Let's see. I see Renee. Hi, Renee. Glad you made it. Thanks for texting me.
There were 3 of us on a different line. I think what happened was part of the link was highlighted and we just went to that.
Oh, yeah. For some reason, when I copy it over, it doesn't copy the whole link. So if you copy and paste, it will work for you. So I don't know if that's a setting on my account, but got it worked out.
We're good.
All right. So I know you've all been working hard already. I know you've been meeting and I've been tuning into that. You've had some great summary points on your meetings. For those of you that just joined, we talked just briefly about the doohickey's assignment. So, we'll record this. You can tune into that, the first few minutes here. Shortly, I'll post it right after. Talk a little bit about the group leader assignment, and we'll jump in. So, what do you think of this week's content? And we can talk about kind of whatever's on your mind. regarding teamwork, or this week's topics of diversity and equal opportunity. Anything jumping out to you? Anything sticking out that's of interest? Or questions about any of it?
It's pretty straightforward to me.
I think our group kind of talked it to death today.
Yeah. Good.
Like we started talking in circles over and over again after a while. So
That's good.
all of us are meeting like 2 hours or so.
Oh man, you really did.
We just talked to death. I think we were into it on the first question. We were like 15 minutes into it thinking, oh.
Well, it is one of those topics. I don't know which one you took on that one, but diversity is a pretty interesting topic to discuss. Just because you have kind of that forced diversity, affirmative action, some of the regulations out there, but then how do you really make it natural? I get a lot of questions about that. In fact, I have a student from last semester that's still turning that over in her mind, and she's still emailing me about it. And, we don't know, I don't have a silver bullet to that one. But really it comes down to how you engage your people in an organization, how you keep them involved. Because diversity happens. We're, in this group here on this call, we have diversity, right? We have differing viewpoints. We have different sets of experience. How do we harness that for the best? So, yeah, one interesting topic for sure. What do you think about some of the equal employment laws out there? I think we're all familiar with some. Any questions or thoughts about equal employment?
I don't know. I just remember in the 80s, it seemed like there was a push to, hire a bunch of people with different cultural backgrounds, regardless of what they were capable of doing. And so it's neat to see how it's over time, how it's leveled out to really utilize the group and really go out there and find diversity within a group, not just based on, their background, their culture or whatnot. So I just remember my father, him being forced to hire people just because of who they were or what what their background was, what their culture was. So it's neat to see how this works now.
Well, yeah, that's great. Yeah, and yeah, we're getting there. We're getting there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you use that word force. You try to force it, and I don't know if it's as effective. So.
Well, it's like when they say equal employment or equal opportunity. Well, equal in what way? What are we trying to equalize? Skills, color, background. Right. What are we trying to equalize here?
Yep, that's a great point. Yeah, it's not just about race. It's not just about age groups. It's just kind of all of it. And so it's really just, you have to know, and this applies, something that jumps out to me is this applies to us as individuals and also organizations. We have to know what our end goal is. What are we trying to accomplish? And if you know what that is, then you're going to be able to hire to that. You're going to be able to coach to that. You're going to be able to forge your culture towards that. If you don't know who you are as a company, you might get lost in that. So, good point. So, I mean, as far as as experience goes and equal opportunity, it's everywhere. In my daily work, of course, I work human resources by day, and there's always something going on. And really, you want to create. So we hear the phrase "life is not fair," but what you want to work towards is creating a sense of equity in what you do. So hiring for positions is a huge example. So hey, if we've got a supervisor position open, what happens so much is the problem's about perception. How many of you have worked somewhere where the supervisor that just got hired, everybody feels like they just got hired because they were in with the hiring manager? We experience that, and we still experience that even though it might not be the case. And so those are some of the things, on a day-to-day that we've got to think about how to avoid. So we've got to post for the position. We've got to be transparent about our process. And then, on the flip side, we've got to respect that process. Because if we're not, then we're creating perceptions of favoritism, and then nobody wants to be happy about the decisions, and everybody's grumpy. So, really being deliberate in how we select the talent and in getting the right people on the bus, so to speak. So diversity is a day-to-day thing for sure. And yeah, we've got to be mindful of, the protected classes, age, gender, race, religion, whatever it might be. But it's all about creating that sense of equity. Those of you who are parents, and I have fought some of those battles too.
Well, and I was just going to say, it's also in our schools, at least where we live, we have lots of diversity. I live in the South, and are considered the minority where we live, racially and just demographically, just a lot of things. And we struggle with having the best choices for our kids at times because the government actually has an injunction with our school system saying that our kids are not free to choose where they go to school, but everything has to be equal. And so, put in wherever, and school's not as good because differences are there and some don't work as hard. And there was one specific case in here that really that I saw how probably something he grew up with, and so it was easy for him lackadaisy about work. Maybe he didn't have to support him or whatever. I just see how it goes from school, professional.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So, even though it's the school you're talking about, yeah, this is an example of it, how we distribute that, and when we try to manipulate that, or however we try to maneuver that, there could be some setbacks or some drawbacks to those efforts. And then maybe we don't incentivize people to work at their best or be their best because of how that's set up. Yeah, great example. The school system, can echo a lot of what we talk about, because it's all about developing people, providing opportunity for people to develop their talents and be at their best. Is a lot of what we want to look at from a human resource standpoint, and doing it the right and fair and legal way. Tough balance. Any other thoughts on that? Watch the color burning video.
Yes, I did. That was fascinating.
It is quite the message. So, what do you think about it? Is it realistic? Is it idealistic? Can we accomplish that?
A lot of mindsets, I think, would have to change in order for that to really happen and come about. I think there's a lot of merit to it. And hopefully, you know, it can go that way. I think you have to, I can see issues with it, but at the same time, idealistically, I think it is wonderful.
Yeah, it was a great perspective from that person speaking. Oh yeah, and then it's a matter of how do we get there? What is she trying to get us to, and how do you change mindsets? That's the hard part, right?
Yes.
There is a line in there. Let's see. Oh, it's leaving my mind a little bit. So it was the guy at ESPN. It was the two candidates. Basically, he said, hire the best person.
Yeah.
You want me to hire this person or this person? And he said, yes.
Right.
What do you
The
think?
minority or the one with the experience?
Yes, exactly.
Well, yeah, the minority with the experience. Yeah, that's the one you want.
Yeah, of course. We got our bases covered, right?
Right.
Yeah, I think you know the questions about that, it's really lets us reflect on how we feel about opposing points, or how we feel about those that disagree with us. All those kind of things that we learn about as we interact with people. Using that to our advantage. I think that's the goal. One of my favorite examples of that is Abraham Lincoln. You know, so he was finally elected president, and then the people that he pulled into his cabinet were his fierce opponents. And I don't know, you know, if we can think of leaders that would do that today. I think on a personal level, we might know some, but you know, gathering a group of our rivals and then making them our team.
Yeah. Don't see a lot of people doing that one.
Not as much.
No, and it's hard to teach the kids in school that, especially when they come from backgrounds where it's just almost entrenched in them, and it's in some ways it's a cultural thing, and in other ways it's just because of the environment that they're living in. So it's hard to get them to see that, you know, we all have potential and we all have things to contribute. Would you stop calling each other names? You know, it's like, come on, we need to work together to accomplish this task.
It's a challenge. What are ways we can approach it? Any ways we can try and get that message across? I'm thinking aloud by accident.
I think a lot of it begins with each one of us, for seeing everyone for who they are and what they can contribute. And I think as you continue to strive to work with people and they see that, it can grow from there. But it has to start with each one of us, and we have to be open to it and willing to look individuals in the eye and actually see who they are and what they can accomplish.
Great thought. Oh, so we have to be self-introspective first?
Yeah.
No, you're right. I love it. One of my mantras for this class is effective individuals make effective organizations. You know, so much of it depends on the individual. Yeah, and so we've got to teach that somehow. And I think, fortunately, we have the gospel to help us do that, help us see people the right way. But we got to see ourselves the right way too.
Mm-hmm.
There's opportunity for that every day. Even those employees that I get to deal with every day, that I just have to put on a fake smile when they come to my office. So, yes, lots of opportunity for that. Thanks for the reminder. Any other thoughts about that? Anybody have experience with that? Maybe a change in perspective on how you viewed someone's adversity?
Sometimes it's hard to understand, or to get them to talk about it so that you can understand, where they're coming from and why they're doing it that way, and to be able to explain it to you. People come from backgrounds of different religions and different cultures, and you look at them and you wonder, why are you doing that? I don't understand. Explain, please, so I can understand. And sometimes they just can't do it. They've never thought about it like that.
Yeah, that's a good point. But you're bringing up the important reminder to, the Stephen Covey thing: seek first to understand before you seek to be understood. I'm working on that one too.
Aren't we all?
Any other thoughts on that? Something comes to mind for me. I think, really giving it time to understand, like was just said. A few years back, there was this person my age, and I didn't. That's the funny thing, is I hardly even knew him. I just didn't like the person. I'll admit that. I don't know why. I just had these bitter feelings, and I was in a priesthood meeting one day, and somebody talked about that same experience. They were saying, hey, I was having a hard time with this person, and I read in the New Testament where the Savior said, it cometh out not but by prayer and fasting. And so I prayed and fasted, and it was through those means that my view of that person changed. I'm not saying we need to pray and fast every time we have this conflict, but we definitely can change our views if we step back and take a different approach. And it happens. At work, we're working together, and I've got, in my role, I'm the HR business partner, so I have to stay in a partnership with, a site director, operations management, all these groups of people, and invariably, sometimes we just butt heads. But if we step back, we're all trying to accomplish the same thing. It's just in how we're trying to do it. And so we do have to be able to express ourselves.
Yeah.
That's it. We have to express ourselves and say, well, here's what I'm saying. Here's why I'm holding back here. From an HR standpoint, a lot of times it's saying, well, here's what we've got to watch for legally in this situation, and here's why. And be able to have those conversations. And as soon as we're clear on those things, resolutions happen fairly quickly. So,
well, that's just that's what Elder Ballard said in his talk. That's what the apostles do. They're all from different backgrounds. They all have different input, and they may not always agree, and they voice that, until they get to the point where they can see what the other is saying, or see how to tweak this or tweak that makes it conform to what they need to happen, and that they can all agree on.
Great example. Yeah, the Brethren are a great example of that. And then having the humility to, consider a different view.
Right.
Yeah, great example. And that makes me think of, in our church situation, in a presidency or in a ward council, it might be worth sharing that mindset. Saying, hey, here's what we're trying to accomplish here. We're on the same team. I think sometimes it's so easy to forget that we're not opponents. We become opponents when we're all on the same team.
It's like, this is my view. Help me to understand your view. This is how I see it. So what is it that I'm missing out on? Can you, point something out? Maybe I'm missing something. But we need the humility to be able to do that and accept that we might be missing something.
Definitely. Yeah, that's something we can consider in any setting, in our families, marriages, work relationships, whatever it might be.
You know,
Right.
I have found living here in the DC area, I'm surrounded by a lot of, it's a very cultural diverse area. And just in the way people handle themselves or handle difficult situations culturally is very different. So some can get very excitable and very loud and very angry, but that's just how they express themselves. It's not necessarily an affront to me if I were interacting with them. And at first I would be really surprised and shocked, but then once I came to understand them and a little more about their culture, then I was able to more fully appreciate what they were saying and not be as surprised. And it actually helped me open up to be able to have a better understanding of how I might interact and express myself towards them. That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, you opened yourself up to the opportunities for those interactions too.
And when you talk about culture, you're not just talking about like different countries or, you know, you can have a different culture within a town, you know, how people grew up, or if you've got a blended family, you could be blending two different cultures in that one family, trying to work it out together. So culture covers a lot of different areas, different aspects.
Yeah, it's huge. And so I guess the question for us to consider is how do we harness that for the good of an organization?
Hmm.
Right? And the answer is not cut and dried for everybody, but we've got to have answers to those questions so that we know, where to put our energy. That makes sense. And so, did you get to read about the paradigms yet? The paradigms. Yeah, those will get you thinking. If it's if we're integrated or if we're trying to be a little more separate and deliberate. Is there one better than the other? Perhaps. But again, it's all a blend of how we choose to engage our group.
Doesn't it kind of depend on the business or situation that you're in, or the product you're selling or the service, as to what kind of diversity you're going to look at?
Definitely, I think so. I'm thinking of, so we had I would listen to, what's his name? His name is Mark, his last name, but he is the head of human resources over at Honeywell, big giant company that does all kinds of products, all the thermostats, aircraft equipment, big company. So he is head of HR and the talent selection development of that company. His background though is supply chain.
It's what?
Supply chain. So purchasing and logistics and things like that. So it's interesting because I heard him speak about that. So his background has enabled him to become a really, really effective HR person when it comes to looking at the talent pipeline, so to speak, and getting the right people for their organization, how to keep that pipeline going. So yeah, I mean, that's one example of a background that he probably wasn't ever planning on going into HR, but it's a fit. So, so yeah, it definitely depends on the organization and who knows what, and then that whole thought of innovating and getting the new ideas going that makes us think. So. Any other thoughts or comments or anything like that? Thanks for the discussion. A lot of it, that's what we do in these meetings, and it's a lot of what you're doing in your group. So I try not to hound on the cases that you've already talked about and discussed. Some of you for 2 hours. That's good. There's no time rules here. So but try to bring in some examples, try to talk about what we're thinking about, and just really just increase our learning and perspective. So, but yeah, definitely think about the diversity part of it as when it comes to the balance of obeying the equal opportunity laws and then using the diversity in our organizations to bring out the best in our people. There's kind of two bookends to that, because we want to comply, but we also want to excel. And so I think that's where that's trying to take us. And so really, think about that. If you have thoughts of how we get there, let's keep sharing with one another, and we'll apply that. Next week we'll talk about equal employment laws as well. We're going to look more at the harassment side of things. That part of that always gets so interesting and makes you scratch your head. So, so that's the fascinating part of HR is why do people do what they do? Why did you make that decision?
Right.
So, but yeah, and my goal for all of you is to help you apply what we're talking about in many areas of your life. If this stuff helps you in your work, awesome. If it helps you in your relationships at home, it helps you with your children, in church. That's the goal, and as an individual. So I think we've talked about the importance of applying what we learn to how we view those around us. Any questions? Other thoughts? Final questions on that?
I'm good.
Okay. Well, appreciate your discussion. I hope there's some application there. I will get an email out with all the doohickeys due dates and kind of the topic areas. So that's kind of outlined for you. And then as you get questions that come along, feel free to email me, text me, or the discussion board. Sorry for my delay in that discussion board. In the past we've used the Google community, and this semester we're not, and so I was not used to getting into that discussion board. So sorry about that. I should be caught up now, and I'll make sure I'm in there at least every other day. So.
Okay.
Okay, we just text you if you don't answer.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fine. I usually have my phone with me most of the time. So. Yep.
And Jill sent a sample out on the doohickey paper. Is that what you said?
Yep. Let me get a note here. Do that. Paper, and don't copy this, or don't let that influence you too much. Just kind of look for it, mostly for format and kind of the length and how it sounds.
Okay.
And I'll find that link. I think there's a link out there for the crew team. And if it's not the Army crew team, it's a rowing team. There's a link a video that I've seen before.
So what sample paper are you talking about?
Oh, so that's probably before you jumped on. So
Before we could find you, yeah.
Yeah, I have a sample doohickeys paper.
Yeah.
That I can send out just kind of as an example. I was telling everybody I don't have a page requirement, but we generally look for 3,500 words.
Okay.
The paper. And so the sample will kind of give you a good idea of what that looks like and sounds like.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't know if you missed this part too. Really the doohickeys, just think of it as a consulting type situation. We're consulting for this poor doohickeys company, and it kind of seems silly because there's so many problems. But as you break it out into the different issues, it gives you an opportunity to really think about, okay, here's these concepts I'm learning. How am I going to present that into a workable recommendation or solution? And why is that going to benefit the company? So you kind of have to sell the idea and defend your thinking just like you would any other paper. So make the best of it. And I do have one student that emailed me after the semester couple semesters back, and she's like, "You won't believe it. I used to giggle when I first read the doohickeys paper, but she ended up getting a job in a manufacturing firm. She walked in, told where the office was, didn't even know where the restroom was, and she says, 'Oh my goodness, I'm at doohickeys.'"
Oh no.
You never know.
Hmm.
So, yep, I will get that sent out.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thanks for all your hard work so far. If you need anything, let me know.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Take care.
All right.
Okay, bye. Good night.
Good night.